Afternoon,
Welcome, everyone.
everyone. Oh, go
Go
for
ahead, Robin.
it. We're just really excited to welcome you here to this webinar about 2026 planning. Uh, Andy's going to take over from here in a second, but I just want to let you guys know if you have any questions throughout this process, please feel free to drop them in the comments or in the chat function, or you can use the Q&A, or you could shoot me an email. I'll be monitoring that, Robin, ROBYN at strategyleaders.com. And please feel free to ask the questions. We'll answer them at the end. And I think this is going to be a great one. So take it away, Andy.
Thank you, Robin. So welcome everyone today. I am Andi Gray. I am founder of Strategy Leaders, but no longer president. Why? Because I'm working on selling my business to the next generation here in the company. And as we talk today about 2026 starting now and getting ready to grow, exit, or do both, we're going to cover a lot of the topics that I've been dealing with over the years and that our clients deal with and that we work on year in and year out. So just to clarify, we work with the owners of privately held businesses like you who've built real businesses, who care about what happens next, and who are facing complex decisions about growth, succession, and exit. This isn't a theory program. This isn't a question about what might happen in a textbook. It's the reality. 2026 isn't far off. It's here, and the decisions you make in the next few weeks will shape your results and theoretically for the next several years. So this is about helping you to get some clarity, some confidence, and control heading into the new year. So as we look at the company at Strategy Leaders, we've been around 30 years. We've been helping business owners grow and exit their businesses, getting them ready to step back. And our approach is rooted in research, developed at Columbia University, and then refined through decades of hands-on experiences, mostly with businesses in the $5 to $30 million range and across hundreds of industries. We stay with our clients from the first meeting until complete execution. We stay with them to help them make better strategic decisions and, more importantly, to ensure follow through. And if you're looking for information about us, you can use the QR code here on the slide, and you can also reach out with the contact information on the lower left-hand corner. And as Robin said, you can reach out directly to her, Robin at Strategy Leaders, and you can also put information or requests in the chat window. We will be taking questions at the end of today's webinar, so please do feel free to throw questions out there as we go through, and we'll play Stump the Presenter when we get done. Thank you. At this point, we're going to get started. Robin, is it okay to get started, or do we need to wait a little bit?
Nope, you're good to go.
Okay, so as a reminder, I'm sure that you are all staring at the end of the year calendar. 2026 starts in another couple weeks, and what you've got to think about is, are you exposed or are you positioned? This year, 2025 is over, but what happens in Q1 is about how you're going to get ready to set things in motion right now. And the first quarter is going to surface anything that you didn't clean up or didn't get in place in time. And these are a few things that you want to think about. Buyers, lenders, partners are already taking a look at you, whether you're aware of them or not. And a slow start to 2026 is going to probably end you up with a year-long fight to recover. So there's a lot of reason to get this off the ground now. In terms of where you are and what you need to be working on, you need to look at what buyers are caring about, which is a trailing 36 months. So if you don't have a good track record, now's the time to start building it. If you've got a good track record, now's the time to preserve it. Keep in mind that revenue without variety, profit, and upside, we're going to talk about that a lot today, represents risk for you, as does managerial independence. And make sure that you know that the trends are what are going to tell the story. Buyers are not just going to look at one good year. The patterns really matter, and you've got to be thinking about, are you building value or are you just spinning your wheels? So in terms of smart owners and the questions they're asking right now, I'm going to put all of you guys in the bucket of smart owners and give you a checklist to go against. Are we ready to grow right out of the gate? Are our outcomes going to get us where we want to go? And can we market the business effectively? Can we improve the margin in Q1? Margin is what it's all about. And we've got to be looking at cash flow and what's holding back positive cash flow. And then you've also got to look at the workforce. Do we have the workforce we need? Is there control over overhead and debt? Is there a balance sheet problem? And where should we be reinvesting and why? It's about being prepared to reinvest in tech and people and marketing and sales and profit growth, but doing it intentionally. That's what we want you focused on. Okay. Hold on one second. For some reason, I'm stalled. There we go. So here are 10 levers to pull before January. One is lock in margin gains. Get contracts signed with your customers and with your vendors. Decide how you're going to boost revenue and cost of goods sold control. Make those decisions now and put them into a game plan for the year. Once you've got that and you're clear about what kind of gross profit margin you expect and what revenue growth goals you expect, then set your sales and profit targets and set accountabilities with your sales force primarily, but also with your operations team. Make sure that you clean up the books with someone in charge, and what's not on this page but should be written in caps, with someone who knows what they're doing. I can't tell you how many customers we work with and they have someone who is doing clerical entries, has no accounting training, does not understand why they're entering things. We recently had a client that was putting the person putting things into QuickBooks was loading them into cost of goods sold, even though they were revenue things, and vice versa. The books were completely messed up. There was no story that was going to give the client or anyone looking at the business an accurate picture of what's going on. So make sure you've got control of the books. Make sure that you can reset your KPIs, your key performance indicators, and then also work on building a dashboard with your 2026 goals that ties together KPIs, balance sheet, and profit and loss performance. You want to work on a quick review of who are your top find any gaps in the organization and prioritize solutions, but do that priority based on payoff. So which action is going to get us the best payoff? Let's start with that one. You can knock off some things quickly, but you want to make sure that when you're working on filling in the gaps, that you are taking the high priorities first. Have a solid plan to build up cash reserves. Now is the time to go talk to your bank. When it comes to building up cash reserves, one of the best ways to do that is to buy yourself time to pay down the credit line. So talk to the bank about terming out the credit line and then reinstating it. By that, I mean, take what's on the credit line now, turn it into a 3-year loan. Yes, you will pay interest. So what? Buy yourself time to pay off what's on the credit line, but then make sure that the credit line goes back into place so that you have room to handle the accounts receivable in the coming year. And then set a plan so in the credit line by next year. We had a client recently, and they had a chunk of change out on the credit line, but nothing outrageous. They were trying to pay it down too quickly, and they wiped out cash, and then they felt like they had no control. So we reset the plan. We're going to slowly play this out. We're actually going to run the credit line up to build up some cash, pay off some year-end bills with the credit line, talk to the bank about then terming it out, get all of that into a long-term plan, and then go to zero on the credit line and start the new year and use it only for handling accounts receivable. Whatever you do and however you build this, make sure your employees are aware of what you're doing, they understand why you're doing it, and they're on board with the changes. Take the questions. Don't treat it as critique or somebody getting in the way of what you're trying to do. Actually work with the employees to understand why would they have questions. Are those questions legit? If they are, then how can you answer them in a way that will help them be on board with you? And on the other hand, if you've got non-performers, now's the time to be looking at it. So I want you to think about, as you get ready to wrap up this year and you start looking towards next year, are you managing by numbers or by gut? Your budget is not a prediction, it's a strategy map. And your KPIs aren't just performance metrics. If you use them well, they're performance drivers. So set targets that guide the team, and then be prepared to review those targets with the team consistently and make course corrections as you go along and you find out that there are gaps in the delivery. So be prepared to react, be prepared to step in and support people, but make them accountable for what you're asking them to do. At the same time, where's the cash going, and is that strategic? I think that's something that most owners don't. We had a client who thought he couldn't do anything about cash being drained away. And once we dug into where it was going, debt service versus draws versus reinvestment, and how it was being used, we were actually able to pick up substantial relief for that client. A lot of times we find owners wait for the bookkeeper to close the month before they know what they're doing. Well, you can't wait that long. You've got to have tracking in place on a weekly basis. For example, one owner thought that sales were doing really well because he was doing a lot of selling. But when we dug into it, his sales team was falling down on the job. So we built a weekly set of goals and a tracker, weekly and year to date. And we were able to then talk with specific team members about where they were succeeding and where they had to pick up the game. The next question, which I just started talking about, is, are your employees driving value? A team that depends on you isn't building value, it's actually draining it. So in 2026, you want to make a goal to offload a significant portion or percentage of the decisions you make and get them onto other people's shoulders. This is going to take practice, it's going to take work. Don't expect that it's going to go 100% right. But when it falls down, make corrections and come back. Don't step in to take over. And make sure that everybody knows what success looks like, that it goes well beyond just staying busy. So here are some questions. Do the employees understand what matters? Will they take ownership? Can they operate without you? Are they aligned to the 2026 goals and KPIs? What do they need to learn? Don't expect that whatever was good enough for your employees to get through last year is going to be good enough for this year. You're going to have to learn how to do more stuff, and they're going to have to step up to help with that. Think about how clean is your organization chart. How many direct reports do you have? You should only have 6, maybe 8 tops. Everything else needs to be distributed downwards. And then what kind of recognition programs do you have in place, along with the accountabilities and the ways to correct when people aren't stepping up? So this page is about your leadership test. Can the business run for a month or more without you? If the answer is no, even if you're not looking to exit right now, that's a risk. So is there a real number two in place? Or in my book, a better yet, a team that can step in and is learning to do that and is practicing with you right now on how to do that. We have a client who is building a management team of 6 to 8 people. They have been meeting regularly, and by regularly I mean to define the goals, to define the actions, to talk with each other about what is and isn't working. And the ability of that team now to pull things off of the owner's desk, to get the owner out of the middle of the business is substantial. That's what you want, because you can't scale if you can't step back. And if you sell, you can't hand it off, and a buyer is going to see that in about a heartbeat. In addition, if you don't get things off of your plate, then you're more likely to burn out before you get to a successful exit. In terms of the client I was just talking about, one of the things we had to look at is what holes existed, who needed to be brought on board that wasn't there already. And because of that discussion, we've brought in the 2 key players who are part of the team. They were not brought in above, they were brought in beside the existing managers. They play a big role in helping to guide and develop the company. And they understand that their role is to be team members, not just take over. What you also want to look at is what kind of succession plans exist up and down line. So if you're going to move somebody up in the organization, they need 1 or 2 people under them preparing to take on their role so that when you move them up, stuff doesn't just fall apart. So let's talk about what box you're in. You don't need to lock into a 10-year strategy, but you do need to pick a direction. So are you going to double down and continue to grow this business? Are you starting to think about exit and getting ready to transition, or trying to tighten up the ship and just reposition the business? Each one of these boxes requires different moves. And the earlier that you align with one of these boxes and pick the one that you're going to focus on, the easier it will be for you to make decisions and to bring people along with you, and to tell a consistent story to the buying marketplace. So if you're going to grow, things you're probably thinking about, it's okay for us to reinvest as long as we're getting benefits out of that. I'm willing to stay involved as the owner for a while. I'm willing to stick it out. And I want to figure out how to scale this business up smartly. So if I'm going to grow the business, I want to be smart about it, but I am willing to continue to put time in. Second box, I'm thinking about exit. Ideally, you want to be thinking at least 2 to 5 years out. You're curious about evaluation. You're starting to really wonder if all of those urban legend stories about what might be worth based on somebody else that's sold out, you're questioning that. You want to know what your numbers are. It's time for you to start exploring options, what's out there, how are businesses getting, because there are lots of ways to sell it. Insiders, outsiders, third parties coming in from left field. And then finally, if you are running out of time, you're 1 year out, you are in a position where you're going to have to start acting now and act quickly. And that's something that some of you, I hope, are not in that box. But if you are, definitely make sure that you're laying out an immediate action plan. And then finally, you may be thinking about just repositioning the business. So you want to see more profit. You want to see a better plan, more clarity. You want to put more into your retirement plan before you exit. And you want a team that is capable, but maybe they need focus. So you want to work on that so you can get more monkeys off of your back. And you want to get out of any boxes that you may be looking at and saying, hey, we're stagnant here. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more. So one of my biggest myths that I find owners believe is that they can decide to sell and be out in a few months. And believe me, we get owners that are in that box all the time. For the most part, once we stabilize things and help them see where they can make fixes, they can buy themselves time and they can buy themselves a way out that's more successful. But thinking that you can get out in a few months is not how it works. Not, at least not if you want a clean exit and maximum value, which is what we would wish for you. The truth is that a good exit takes a year or more. If you want to control, if you want to protect your team, you want to avoid value deteriorations, here are some things that you've got to really think about. Early planning, and a reminder that if you have shareholders, their opinions may matter. So think about who's got control. We have a client right now where there's 50-50 ownership. One wants out, one wants to stay. The one that wants out thought that there was control, and they're starting to find out now that that only goes so far depending on what the one who wants to buy them out is willing to deal with. And there are going to be limits to that. So make sure that you understand who your internal players are. And I would also say that if you have limited time, one of the best places to look and one of the most overlooked places is the employee population. They have the biggest motivation for continuing to keep their jobs. And they may not know how to run the business, but if you can start getting them trained, you can buy the business time to get to a successful exit with them taking the lead. And they don't have to have money on the side in order to buy you out. That can be financed. So most business owners have grown the same way for years. They reinvest, they hire, they expand, but the cost of organic growth has gone up. Labor, materials, marketing, fixing problems, it's all more expensive, and it's slower to deliver a return. That's the organic growth model. Acquisitions is another model that I think is overlooked by a lot of business owners, where you can build revenue, margin, customers, talent, marketing position overnight. You bolt it on, and yes, there are things that have to be worked out. And going into the deal, you better have a really solid valuation and evaluation of the acquisition target to make sure that you're not getting smoked. And we've got a client right now that was ready to sign on the dotted line and then found out that there's a clause in terms of the real estate that they thought they had access to for a long period of time, that they are going to lose that real estate theoretically within a year or two. That changes the whole offer for the business. It changes the whole positioning of the business. And that would have been a disastrous deal for them to make had they not found that out until after they did the acquisition. So you do have to do very thorough due diligence pre-purchase, but it is a great way to build the business quickly. We've got a lot of clients that have brought in an additional 10, 20, 30% to the business and opened up an entire new market, brought in new talent, or brought in new clients. And I would say that bringing your management team on board with you and working together with your management team, you can build a smart plan about when to do organic growth, when to do acquisitions, what kind of acquisitions to do, and how to get through both without jeopardizing the business. So let's shift gears a little bit. And when buyers and lenders evaluate their business, they're looking for so much more than top line revenue. They're looking for patterns in terms of the health and strength of the business, the predictability of the business, the cleanliness of the business, and a team that isn't reliant on you. They want systems in place that allow you to repeat successes. And if they don't see these, they're either going to negotiate really hard when they see these things, or they're actually going to walk away or go running in the other direction. So on the right-hand side, you see some things that you want to get out of if there are problems in your business. Big one-time projects. It's not going to be here next year. So you've got a revenue boost this year, but what's going to happen next year? We have a client who's actually come out of that box 2 years ago. They had that big one-time project, and it took so much resources that they could not work on expanding their selling ability in this past year. That's finally been fixed and put to bed. Now, Tax season only books is a big one. So I work with the accountant, at tax time only, and here's what we work on. And that's the only books that I have. That is so scary to banks and buyers. You've got to really think about how are you going to display what's going on. At the same time, it's not you who's going to solve this. You can't be in the weeds with everything in your head and nobody else who knows what's going on. And you've got to obviously watch out for flat or falling profits or the prediction of either one. Now, 2026 represents some additional challenges. And this is challenges for the seller. It's about what's going on around you as much as what's going on inside your company. And you want to try and eliminate as many of these challenges and have buyers hungry to acquire your firm because you've dealt with the marketplace opportunities and put to bed the challenges. So here's some examples. Risk concentrated portfolio. So the clients are declining. They're in a market that has done well, but there are a lot of risk factors going forward. You're dealing with exposure to tariffs. We have one client where their gross profit is growing or declining dramatically. Their cost of goods sold is growing dramatically because of tariffs and freight charges. Other government interventions may also have an impact. You want to look at any markets that are under stress. So take a cold, hard look at the clients and the markets they play in. Are these markets you want to be in the future? Make sure that you're not slow to see the impact. You've got effective brakes and gas pedals, and you can push on either. You can ramp up and ramp down quickly when something goes right or something goes wrong. Make sure if you have a workforce that they are balanced, they understand technology, and if you've got an immigration sensitive workforce, this is going to be a big problem in 26. You want to make sure that you are dealing with high turnover rates and any limited ability on the part of your employees to contribute. So will they stick around and can they add value? And then frankly, the biggest one I think that's going to be talked about the most in 2026 is the commitment to technology, especially the use of AI. And if you've got antiquated, manual, heavy systems, now's the time to deal with it. We have a client that they've made a commitment to a tech platform that quite honestly isn't going to work for them. And they're looking at it as an expense that they need to recover an investment from. It's in fact a sunk cost. They've already paid for it. Be done with it. Go find a better system that's going to move you forward more quickly and start engaging with that system. Make sure that you've got people in your business who are specifically charged with figuring out how to make use of AI and put it to work for your business. These things are signs that you as a company are really determined to stay with the future. And that's what you're selling. I will tell you, you don't find out what kills your deal at the table. You do find it out in due diligence when the buyer starts pulling the threads. I can't tell you how many deals I've seen fall apart or the deal drops in value by 30 or 40% because of small issues that were ignored for too long. They're fixable, but you need to start early. So you've got to work on your reporting and having valuation history. You want to make sure that you hold key relationships, and just if you hold key relationships and decisions, that you're delegating that out. You're assigning people to different responsibilities to work with your vendors and work with your customers. Your customer, your market, your vendor concentration is all something you're looking at, and you've got people who are assigned to expand and increase recurring revenue. We want to make sure that there's a long-term growth plan and a long-term profit plan that emphasizes the importance of strong margins. You want to get systems down on paper, both your systems, the things you know how to do, and the things that your people know how to do. And then, as I said before, make sure that you've got a commitment to technology, but I would also recommend that you do it within the framework of what does the marketplace want. So I've seen a lot of times where business owners have 3 or 4 tech choices, and they've made one because they had a good sales rep. They convinced them this was the way to go. They didn't put it in the framework of, here's the technology that my industry is moving towards. Here's what most of the players that are going to be bigger than I am and most interested in buying me are going to want. Or here are the tech systems, if my employees are going to buy it, that my employees can make good use of, and they're trained to do that. So this is the no BS moment in today's session. Score yourself honestly. Just take a couple of minutes and go through these 5 questions. And don't answer based on what you hope or what you think a buyer would want to see, but rather be honest about where you are. And if your business depends on you to function, or your books are messy, or a majority of your revenue comes from 1 or 2 or 3 clients, if you haven't trained people to step up, these are the things that, if you know the answers, you can work on the solutions in 2026. So let's start with question number 1, and you're going to rate it from 1 to 5. 1 is low, 5 is high. Can the business run without you? And think about, when's the last time you took time away, and was it for a month? Question number 2, is the revenue diversified across products, clients, and markets? And is it growing? How well are you doing at that? Number 3, are financials clean and current? Can you report accurately monthly? Can you close the books within 5 days? What do you look at weekly? And is that a good set of guideposts? Do you have key performance indicators in place? Are you tracking them with your employees? Do they know what the KPIs are? And are they committed to delivering on them? The next question, do you have a leadership team in place? How good is it? Be really honest here. A lot of movement into a successful exit is also recognizing where you have gaps in the team and where you need to take action, and being willing to do the tough things. And then, do you know your business evaluation? So it's not based on urban legend. It's not based on what one of your neighbors said they sold their business for. It's really a question of, can you prove the value? Do you have a report? And it's not a report from your accountant that is 3 sentences in an email. That doesn't count. You need a qualified valuation of the business that you can then say, is this enough? You can hand it over to your financial planner who's working on your estate plan. You can also, as you work on that valuation, figure out what role the business is going to have to play in boosting the value of the business so that you can retire successfully, so that you can reward your employees for sticking around, and so on. So 1 to 5, do you know your business valuation, and can you prove it? Okay, so add those numbers up. Those are numbers just for you. Anything under 20 is a warning sign. Make sure that you start working on the gaps that you have. And we're going to recap and have some takeaways. So at Strategy Leaders, we don't just plan, we help owners execute. We build a business that buyers want. So it's not just your business, but it's the next generation, whether that's internals, externals, or folks coming in from the side. Valuations and growth planning, KPI tracking and forecasting, what if modeling, strengthening the leadership and reducing owner dependency. These are all things that we work on with our clients here. Second box, preparing for transition. This is where we work on exit and succession planning. We act in the role of buy-sell advisory support and next-gen training and team readiness. When it comes time to transition, I want to caution you. Something like 90% of the sell deals that get started never get over the finish line. The business never actually gets sold because the way that the model works just isn't effective enough. The attorneys can't talk to everybody. The sellers can't talk effectively and air their their grievances, and the buyers aren't in good enough communication with the sellers, and they have a different agenda. All of that needs to be wrapped up into a negotiating model where you can talk to everybody, you can find out what everybody wants, and you can figure out a way to address it. And that's where we come in. And then finally, work with a partner who stays with you. Don't hire someone just to write you a business plan. Make sure you've got someone on board who can help you implement it. Make sure that you've got regular check-ins on your team training and you're putting in place real accountabilities, recognizing that that's going to be work to do and you may need support getting through it. And get yourself a support structure. As you go through complex, trying processes, you don't have to go it alone. There's no need to go through it alone. And quite frankly, if you do try to go through it alone, you're not going to get the kind of change you need in order to be effective. It's a 180-degree change from entrepreneurial to business builder, and another 180-degree change from business builder and operator to selling the business. Those are huge transitions, and that's our job, is to help our clients understand the difference between each stage and then walk their way successfully through those transitions. So I hope you put some questions into the chat box, and I hope that you grabbed a copy of the QR code. And now we're going to go ahead and take your questions with a reminder. If you want to chat, book an intro call. There's your QR code to do that. I love talking to business owners. It's no cost, no obligation. My job is to get to know a little bit about you, give you some good advice, and help you figure out what you need to be doing next. If it's something we should be working on together, we'll both be able to figure that out. And if it's not, I'll give you great advice on where else you should be looking. I promise you that. So with that, I'm going to back up. I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to turn over to Robin. Robin, do you have questions for us?
We do have a couple questions. I
Okay.
apologize. My son is here in the background. So if you hear him, that's just him.
That's okay.
So I got a couple questions in through email, actually. So the first one is, I've been thinking about exiting in a 2 to 3 year period. What's the first thing I should do in January to move in that direction?
I would go back to the beginning of this presentation, and there was a whole list of things to work on in the first next few weeks, and I would get that house in order first. So get your credit lines termed out, build up cash so you've got a war chest, evaluate your customers, evaluate your vendors, and evaluate your employees, and then build a roadmap to fill in any holes that you can start walking down January 1.
Perfect. The next question we have is, I've never had a formal budget or KPIs. How do we introduce that without freaking people out?
I think owners overestimate how much people are going to be freaked out. And they also overestimate potential dangers if I tell the company or people in the company how much revenue we make or how much profit we make. They need the numbers in order to support you. And what you need to do is educate your employees on where that profit goes, including reserves to keep them safe, to keep their jobs safe, to pay taxes, to reinvest in the business, that it's not all just money you're going to take home and then build a mansion on a hill. So when you're building this model for your employees, you want to have absolute clarity, both in your own mind and in the minds of everybody that's going to support you. And you need to have discussions about it. Like, we can afford to spend this on our insurance, but no more. And if we have a problem with our insurance rates this year, it's because we've got probably a quality problem in terms of how we operate the business, not just an inflation problem. So what can we do with our insurance broker as a team in order to improve how we perform? How do we draw in their talent and get them to help us perform better? That's just a very simple example. And so as you build the budget, it's easier if you get things in your P&L built into buckets. So cost of goods sold, general and administrative expenses, marketing and selling expenses, overhead payroll, for example. We can help you get your chart of accounts to work to reflect that. Once you've got that built, then it is a mechanical exercise to build the first draft. Again, we can do that. We had a client right now that said, we've never built a budget. We don't have anybody here who's qualified to do it. And my response was, look, we've already got your chart of accounts set up. It's talking to us. It's going to take us probably 2 hours to build the first draft of the budget. And they're like, that's incredible. How can you do that? Well, that's what we do. That's what we know how to do. But then secondarily, once we build that budget, we have to go and build the forecast. And that's digging into what are the capabilities of the sales organization? What's going on in the marketplace? Asking questions from customers. How far out are you? What kinds of things do you need next year? How much of that do you think you can get from us? And how much more do you want to get from us? And working on the questions with the sales and customer support organization and getting answers down on paper and then turning that into a forecast will be invaluable, because once you can match up the forecast and the expenses, you now can see how it's going to turn out and whether or not that's going to work. Now, we'll pull in the expenses from the balance sheet that every owner forgets about, like the principal payments on the loans. That has to come in, putting cash away, building up the reserves, paying taxes. All of that has to come into play, and we can build those buckets in. But once we put together the picture, revenue, expenses, and balance sheet, we can tell you whether or not you're going to have a good year or not. Wouldn't you rather know what that answer is in January before you even get started with the year, rather than finding it out in reality sometime in the fourth quarter of next year? Don't live that way. It's crazy to not know how things are going to turn out. We can change that picture for you.
Great, thank you. We have 2 more questions.
Okay.
The first one is, we've had kind of a flat year. Should we be thinking about repositioning or doubling down on growth?
Without having a specific conversation with you, I can't answer that question. I would encourage you, take a picture of the QR code, book an intro call, let's have a chat, or just send me a text and say, I want to talk. I'm happy to take your call and we can dig into that. Repositioning is very much a condition of the marketplace and what's going to happen in your marketplace. I don't know to what extent you have good forecasting information from trade associations that you belong to. That would be really helpful. Talking to key customers about what they see coming. And then on the other side, if you're looking at, should we do an acquisition? I like doing acquisitions, but I also get scared when business owners do them without any strategic thought. So I found somebody, there for sale, let's go buy them. It's a little bit too quick. We've got to figure out, is that the kind of business we should be getting in? Is that complementary to what we know how to do, but expansive? And then has it got growth potential as well? So will it serve a short-term need or a long-term need?
Great, thank you. And the last question is it too late to make 2026 a growth year if we haven't started planning yet?
Absolutely not. I would really look at what have been your growth trends for the last 3 years. What does the growth trend look like for this year? You want to be looking at a net gain of 10 to 15% in revenue growth and a couple of percentage points in gross profit growth. Again, that's under normal conditions, unless, there's a sinker in there that I don't know about. And as you put that picture together, then it's about, okay, do we invest in Salesforce? Do we move people up into sales that are already capable of supporting the sales process and we give them more responsibility? Do we hire a couple of people to get in touch with our customers and find out what they want that is in addition to what they have now? And we either hire them as surveyors or we hire them to work with our customer base long term. Do we go out into the marketplace and find partners to work on this together? So other companies that are looking to expand and we're not going to compete with each other, we could combine forces and be helpful to each other. We just did that with a client of ours, that they're both going after the same company, the same client, they're in the same geographic market, and they don't compete with each other. So we're putting the two teams together. So if one team finds a lead, they'll share it with the other team and vice versa. And this is really going to help both companies save on expenses and expand the platform of what they can contribute to. I would tell you, I wouldn't give up on can I impact sales until I get well through the second quarter and into the third quarter. Although keep in mind, the longer you go into the year, the bigger the hole you dig, the harder it's going to be to get out of. And at some point you have to say, you know what, I got to work on next year's plan, not this year's plan. We're almost at January. I would work really hard on growth and profitability right now.
All right. That's it. That's all the questions we got today.
Okay, folks, great talking to you. I'm glad you showed up. I'm glad you're working on and thinking about these topics. I'll reach out to all of you to see if you want to have a chat, or you can book an intro call with me and make it happen faster. I'd love to talk to all of you. I hope you'll take my call. Thank you.